Greetings everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Horribly Cliche. I knew I couldn't let the coincidence of my video release falling on Halloween go by, so today we are going to watch the 1978 John Carpenter film. Now I've been really struggling as to how I wanted to make this video because John Carpenter is my all-time favorite horror director. And this is going to sound biased, but I can't find anything wrong with this movie. Do you see some shadows that shouldn't be there? Sure. Is the lighting done poorly? Yes. But I don't really consider any of these things issues. I think they're just part of this incredible movie that gave birth to a whole new style of horror. Because up until this movie, killers needed to have reasons, motive. They needed a backstory. The monsters had to be fast, cunning, and there needed to be blood. There always needs to be lots of blood. But John Carpenter's monster is different. Michael Meyers breaks that mold. He doesn't sneak or hide. He walks. Slowly, almost carelessly, as if his brain is only capable of giving him a single command at a time. His story? He doesn't really have one. John Carpenter's intent with this character was that audience members would never be able to relate to him. His clothing tells you nothing about him. He never speaks. He never offers any reason for his killings. Simply put, he's not so much of a character as he is the absence of one. A never-stopping, never-dying, always hunting, just force of pure evil. Now, the man who plays Michael Meyers, his name is Nick Castle, and he desperately searched for motivation to use in this movie. He asked, why am I doing this? What is my character's goal in this scene? And John Carpenter gave him nothing. Carpenter would say, your motivation is just to walk from the closet to the door. Or, your goal is to break through this closet door. That's it. And as an actor, when you're given very little, you do very little. And these are just a few reasons as to why his on-screen presence is just so chilling. Now, most people don't realize this, but this wasn't a big film. This was actually a really small indie film when they made it. A budget of only $300,000. So they did have to make use of whatever they could. A lot of the cars you see are just crew members' cars, or a catering vehicle every once in a while. Or John Carpenter's car himself he has parked in several scenes. Even the car Michael Meyers drives around the entire movie was picked up from a rental car company. Their prop guy rented the car, installed some wiring and some decals, made it look like a cop car, and that agency never even realized their car was in a movie. The lighting is dark, which sets the mood very well, but again, it was primarily due to the fact they just couldn't afford much lighting equipment. They had to make do with what they had in the scene. And arguably the most iconic outcome of this limited budget is the mask. This isn't anything special. It's a Captain Kirk Halloween mask. They ripped off some eyebrows, they painted it white, and they cut the eyes bigger. But that simplicity defines Michael Meyers. He is simple. He is singular. He has one intention, and that's to be evil, to kill. And that's all we get. And as an audience, we want more. We're desperately trying to find out more, and we're never given it. And I think that's why he's become such a popular icon of horror, is we can't figure him out. We don't know why he does what he does. He just does. Now, I've talked about the characters, the budget, but what about John Carpenter? What makes him my golden goose of horror movies? Well, his use of lighting, his blocking, his writing, all amazing. But I personally love him for his mastery of sound. He's composed almost all the music for every single one of his movies. He's one of those founders of that idea that sound makes things scary. He can make you feel whatever he wants simply by leaving a note lingering a little too long. Or changing the speed of the sound. Not just with music, but he applies this with natural sound, like in this movie with the breathing of Michael Meyers just standing in a mask. And not just the mastery of using sound, but John Carpenter is the master of when not to use sound, when to just stop and let the audience sit in an uncomfortable silence as a man admires his work. And all of these things add up to why this small-time indie film grossed over $47 million at the box office in '78. By today's standards, that's roughly $175 million, which makes Halloween one of the most successful indie films ever created. Now, I know this goes against a lot of my other videos because my clips aren't chronological, they are out of place, and I'm not exactly telling you the plot of the movie, but I feel all that's fitting. Because if you haven't seen this and you are a fan of horror, I want you to watch it. But as with all of my videos, I will give you a handful of interesting trivia and facts real quick. Jamie Lee Curtis is the daughter of Janet Leigh. Janet Leigh was in Psycho, and John Carpenter considered kind of the hiring of Jamie Lee Curtis as sort of the ultimate tribute to Alfred Hitchcock, one of his idols in horror, and made Jamie Lee the Scream Queen, as a lot of people have gone on to call her. Another fun thing, they only had 20 days to film this, so a lot of the shots were filmed out of sequence. When it was dark, they were just able to film night shots. When it was day, they filmed day shots. Whatever set they had available, they just used it. Because of that, a lot of the scary scenes were out of sequence when they filmed as well. So John Carpenter created a thing called a fear meter that Jamie Lee talks about, where it was basically just a slider as to how terrified she should be in this scene. Because she didn't know if this was her first encounter with Meyers or her 10th encounter with Meyers or whatever. Another fun piece of trivia that just goes with that indie rawness of this film are the pumpkins. This was not shot in the fall. There were not really pumpkins available. So while there are a handful, a lot of the pumpkins you see are just random squash that roughly resembled pumpkins, and they painted them orange. And then something that just goes to show you just how incredible John Carpenter is at creating such an intense character like Michael Myers. In this scene, when he gets his mask pulled off, John Carpenter talks about how people would come up to him and say how disgusting they found Michael Myers' face, and he was so disfigured and hideous with that glimpse they see of him in the light here. But what they saw was just the face of the actor, Tony Moran, who plays him in this scene. Perfectly normal guy. They put a small knife wound on his face, and that's it. A little bit of special effects. But beyond that, it's just his face, and John Carpenter just cites this as evidence of the power of suggestion that he can create in his movies. The audience saw a monster, so they assumed he must look like a monster. But arguably even scarier is when he doesn't look like a monster. And then the last thing I want to say is in this scene, when Laurie and Annie are walking home from school, they stop by these hedges, where initially she thought she saw Michael Myers, and he disappeared. But in this scene, we see this tiny puff of smoke cut across, and that's our John Carpenter cameo. He was kind of a chain smoker when he would film, and usually directly off camera they would find him smoking. And he got better at not smoking so the wind would blow into the shot, but this one eluded him and made it to the final movie, which is kind of cool. And that's really it. That's all I'm going to give you. I really want you to go watch the movie. I kind of didn't want to give you a short version of the movie in a clip. Now, the next horribly cliche episode will pick up with the same usual, as it's the movie Anaconda. And needless to say, that is not breaking new ground by any means. But for John Carpenter films, I feel like they deserve some respect, and I wanted to kind of take it a little more seriously. So thanks everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if this format is actually more enjoyable for you than the normal format of this series, and we can maybe start doing more videos that way. But for now, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you got to do, and then as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and happy Halloween.